Cincinnati Bengals were in reset mode. They had, brought in Coach Jack Taylor. They're meandering through the wilderness again. And if you're not a Cincinnati Bengals fan, which I follow them, but I'm really not, the diehard, they've had long periods of time where they weren't very good. You look at all really of the 90s, then all of a sudden Marvin Lewis comes in. They're a lot better. He does a pretty good job. Andy Dalton, AJ Green, they turn that thing around. Then they begin to fade off. They could never get over the hump and ultimately win a playoff game, but they were getting close. They were right there and just always seemed to have some sort of misfortune, which kept it from them. And so that was a little bit disappointing. But with their victory over the Kansas City Chiefs, one where they came back, they were down, couple scores, battle back, go and get a victory. And with that, clinch the AFC North. Now that's big because the AFC North, it may not have, the top flight powers. It's not like it's got, Seattle. I guess Seattle is not very good this year. Didn't turn out to be, but last season was pretty good. San Francisco, who's been kind of average. And then Arizona and the Rams at the top. It may not be quite like that, but what it does have, it's got a cluster of teams in there that are all really good. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens, very solid team. They've battled a million injuries this year. So they're dealing with it in there. You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers who have dealt with a bunch of stuff this year, and it's the final season of Ben Roethlisberger. They're still, hanging around. All these teams, the Browns, as bad as they've been, they're still hovering around 500. Like all of these teams are clustered together. There's not that different in what their final records have been. And ultimately there'll probably only be a couple of games separating them from them, but Cincinnati is ahead of schedule in their progress and their development. And why? Because Joe Burrow is ahead of schedule as a quarterback. You've sat here and listened to a lot of guys, pundits of different networks sit here and talk about Joe Burrow and how great he is and this and that. It was interesting. One of his former teammates, Mike Weber, compared him, a running back at Ohio State, compared him to Tom Brady. This was before he even ever started a game at LSU. I never really started at Ohio State, but compared him to Tom Brady. And now we've got, Steve Spagnuolo comparing him to Tom Brady, throwing that out there. And this is a guy that's won a couple Super Bowls, played against Tom Brady, had success against him. And I'm not sitting here trying to lump all this praise and say that Joe Burrow is going to be the next Tom Brady, but he has the physical characteristics that he has worked. His skill set is immense because he's worked hard in the weight room. He's grinded. I watched him at Ohio State. I've watched this dude develop through high school. He's gotten infinitely better. It's a testament to his character. That's why his teammates love him. That's why they really enjoy playing for him, because he's got that cockiness, that subtle swagger that when you hear him say things, because he's so quiet and he delivers it in a way that isn't meant to draw attention to himself, you sit there and look like, did he really just say that? Is that real? Like, because it sounds like he's kind of cocky, but I don't really want to believe that. So Joe Burrow bringing that to the table, he's ahead of schedule, probably saved Zach Taylor's job, who potentially was on the hot seat, to start the season. Doing really well. And then the other piece of it, and I was a guy, and I'm prepared to eat a little crow on this. I thought they should have drafted the tackle in Penei Sewell. And, it's interesting for fans who care so much about fantasy, where offensive lines, like there's no way to score them. They're not a skill position player. Everyone's always concerned about it. Well, the reason why you're concerned is because of your quarterback and you want to keep him upright. And it was going to be imperative that the Bengals keep Joe Burrow healthy. You watched how good he was as a rookie. Then you watched him get beat up, and you didn't want to see that happen again. So that's why many Bengals fans who looked at an offensive line in Cincinnati that resembled a sieve more than a cinder block wall and said, hey, get this guy, help shore it up. You really haven't had that tackle position secure since you let Whitworth walk because you thought he was done. Newsflash, Whitworth's like 40 years old. The guy's like almost my age. Maybe he's 37, 38, 39, somewhere in there. I believe he was in my draft class. He is still playing at an incredibly high level. And so that was the hope, is to bring him in and find a way to secure his blind side so he doesn't tear his ACL one more time. And so, with that, I'm thinking, okay, this is a good opportunity for them to get that done and protect your investment, protect your quarterback. Well, instead, they go for Jamar Chase, the flashy weapon, the guy that you look at and say, hey, it's great. If your quarterback's standing, he'll be able to get him the ball, but hopefully he'll be up. But you pair him with T. Higgins, who's emerged as a big-time threat. You pair him with Boyd, who's been really good and been a steady presence over his time in Cincinnati. Now, all of a sudden, you have an elite 3 receivers. You got Joe Mixon, who's a running back, who's been really good, near the top of the NFL in rushing yards. And all these guys are under 25. And Jamar Chase has been remarkable. He's been remarkable. I don't know how you can give Rookie of the Year to anyone else other than him. I mean, I really don't. I mean, there's other guys that have played well, and I get it. But Jamar Chase broke the rookie receiving record, which his teammate, Justin Jefferson, broke last year in Minnesota. He broke it just 1 year later. And, we could talk about the extra game, but he broke it in 16. So he didn't need the 17th. He's only going to add to it now. And so with Joe Burrow and these guys, they're a force in the AFC. I know that, we want to overreact. And so very often, everybody has that big overreaction as we watched Joe Burrow go crazy with Jamar Chase 2 weeks ago. And the overreaction was they're going to blow out the Chiefs. They're going to blow out the Chiefs, not blow out, beat the Chiefs because of how good they are. Chiefs come out, open up a can at the beginning, and they're on a drive. They're moving the football. They're having success. And I thought, okay, this is a snapback. This is more of what we saw with Cincinnati. Joe Burrow spins that thing on its head and does a great job in the second half as they battle back. And Cincinnati's defense did as well. Dark horse team to win the Super Bowl. Check out the odds because I like Cincinnati as a team that could win a playoff game or two. And if you can win 2, you can get to the AFC Championship. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. So keep in mind, Cincinnati ahead of schedule. Why? Because of Joe Burrow.